Hey everybody, welcome back to part 2 of the wire tuck videos on the Cobalt here. The last video we did, we cut up the last connector needed to solder in order to start up the car. I went and soldered it all together, got it in the car already, was getting ready to button everything up. That way in this video I could start it up and explain everything to you guys. And you'll never guess what happened and what I need now, or needed, and I picked up a starter. So one of the things that I had to do in order to start this car was get a longer starter cable, because it has to go inside the car now. It's not just in the under the hood like it was before. So I got that, hooked up the connector on it so I could put it on the starter and then run it all the way through to the inside of the car, and then I'll hook up the connector there. Well, I go to tighten it up on the starter itself, and it turns out 14-year-old plastic is a little brittle, and so this is what we're left with. So right here is the terminal that I was trying to tighten up and put, barely any torque at all on it, and snapped it right off. Fantastic. I'm doing this project because it's supposed to be a cheap project I can do by myself. I have the skills, I have the knowledge to get it all done. But when I'm breaking starters, it's a little bit harder to justify that as a cheap project. Luckily, I have a good group of friends and a community here around San Antonio that is very willing to help out. So I picked up this guy here from one of the local guys in San Antonio for $25. Can you believe that? I can't still. So I can still consider this a fairly cheap project. I'm gonna get this on, and I just came by today to actually drop off that starter. Tomorrow or the next day I'll come back and I'll try to start it up, and I'll bring you guys with me, and we'll go from there. But I'll explain a little bit of what I did since the last video right now. So in this bundle of wire here is this set that has tape on it and runs through a hole near the kick panel, along with this last bundle there that I showed y'all last time. This is what I went back and soldered. It's all done. This here is that same harness that I took home last time, extended it, wrapped it in tape. I ran it right along the other harness that I had on here last time, as well as the starter cable. And it reaches all the way down to the connector on the ECU. So it's all set to go. That's pretty much it. Just gotta hook up that cable, hook it up to the fuse box as well as the starter once I get that put on, and then we'll try it out. One thing that I do have to stress is the importance of taping and identifying your wires before you cut them. I tried to do that with that last harness. You guys saw it in the last video. Well, what I didn't notice was that there were two wires that were green with a white stripe on them that I didn't know were the exact same color. Maybe I just cut them at different times or something. So when I went to start soldering it back on, I had to stop for a bit and try to figure out what it was. So my first idea was to look up the pinouts. So luckily I have access to the pinouts of each connector on the car. I was able to trace back the pin from the connector on the ECU to one of the wires actually went to the fuse box, and the other one goes to the fuel pump in the back. But the one that went to the fuse box, I was able to trace that pin, which was the AC clutch, from the connector because I saw where it was coming out, and traced it to a fuse on the fuse box. So I was able to match that up just right, solder it in without having to test it, and hopefully it should be good. I don't see why it wouldn't work out. So in this video, it'll probably just cut to the next clip, but I'll come back tomorrow or the next day, and I'm gonna install this guy on there, put that starter cable on it, and should be ready to start up. And we're back. It's a few days later. Full disclosure, I actually came here a couple days ago with my dad and my brother. I'll be inserting a clip here shortly about that. But it was a pretty big day because I was able to install the starter. I installed the battery cable, or the starter cable, and put the last connector on, hook everything up, get ready to go, and give her a shot. Only problem was, it didn't work. I got a security lockout light. So I did some troubleshooting for about 20 minutes. And what I came to realize after all of that, looking on the forums, was that I had two connectors wrong, or backwards, on the fuse box. So we have two pairs of connectors here that can be easily reversed. Luckily, I took pictures, did videos, obviously, of when I was taking it apart. But what I had wrong, this is the headlight connector here. This has a bunch of other stuff, but I had them backwards. So just because of that, it's giving me a security lockout. I couldn't start the car, it wasn't doing anything. The lights came on, so I thought it was correct. Everything seemed to be normal outside of that lockout light. But yeah, that's all it was. So I swapped them back where they're supposed to be, give it another shot, and as soon as I turn the key, automatically the lights come on how they're supposed to, the gas gauge goes up to where the gas level is, and right away I knew, okay, this should be all right. Fuel pump primed, all that good stuff. Try to turn it over, and I got what you see in this next clip. As you may or may not have been able to hear, as soon as I turned it over, it surged a few times and then shut off by itself. It did that for the few times that I tried it. But it had already been a long day, and I figured this is a win. I'm gonna leave it where it's at for now. And so that's what I did, and I figured I'd come back in a few days and try to figure out what it was. I figured it was a simple issue because I did delete the evap solenoid and our boost bypass valve that's on the Cobalt. Those units sat right about here. This is actually the evap line coming from the rear of the car that I have to remove still. But what it left open was this port on the throttle body. I put tape on it just for the time being because I didn't have a cap. But also I deleted this line that ran from the intake to the back of the engine right there. I'm gonna put a filter there to cover that up. So I came, put the tape on, and give it a shot and see how it goes. Perfect. And as you saw there, it ran absolutely perfect. I couldn't run it for very long because I put my reservoir back, my coolant reservoir, but it's not full. I lost a lot of coolant when I took it off, so I'll have to refill it before I can let it actually get up to temperature, give it a full, warm up and all that good stuff. But for now, it's exactly what I needed to see. So the next step, now that we know it runs, we know everything's solid, is I'm gonna get the last few wires done, and that will be for our headlight harness that goes to the fuse box. So I got a few of those wires to extend, and I do still need to clean up a lot of this wiring, put some more aluminum on it, put the dash together, and then we will call this project complete as far as the tuck. Now the next steps are gonna be relocating the coolant reservoir. We're gonna see about getting rid of the ABS module and whatever else we can tuck away without losing function of the vehicle or some creature comforts, because I'm gonna keep the AC. I'm probably gonna keep the power brakes, of course power steering, stuff that just keeps it kind of comfortable. So I know relative to the amount of work I've done, I've actually kind of flown through the actual project. If there's anything that anybody has questions on, feel free to comment, ask me questions. I have no problem sharing my experience, the knowledge that I do have on this, which is kind of just by trying it out. One thing that I do want to point out that I did, and it's pretty obvious now, I hooked up my gauge cluster because if anything went wrong, like it did, the security lockout light, it would show on here. Any lights, any messages that the dash would show, it's all visible to you. So that's just one tip to do to kind of help you out when you're trying to get some problems solved and make sure that your car starts correctly. I appreciate you guys hanging with me so far with this first two parts. Got the car running, and there's a lot more to come. Trust me, there's a lot of work to be done to get this to where I want it to be and call the full tuck and shave complete. So it's gonna be a bit still. So again, thanks for watching, thanks for hanging out with me, and we'll see you in the next one.